Oluwaseun Iyasere obtained her first and second degree from the Federal University of Agriculture here in Abeokuta. She obtained her PhD from Newcastle University upon in the United Kingdom in 2014. She is a specialist in animal behavior and welfare and also a senior lecturer in the Department of Animal Physiology (FUNAB), where she teaches courses in comparative animal behavior, environmental physiology, ethics in animal physiology research, and animal welfare. She is the UFAL link person in FUNAB. Dr. S. Oluwaseun Iyasere also belongs to several professional bodies, both at international. Iyasere belongs to several professional bodies, both at international and local levels, such as the University Federation for Animal Welfare (UFO), the International Society for Applied Ethology, the Animal Welfare Research Network (UK), and the World Poultry Science Association, the Nigerian branch. She is an editorial advisory board member of the Applied Animal Behavior Science Journal. She has 22 journal articles and 27 referred conference proceedings to her credit. Her research is in farm animal behavior and welfare, especially in chicken and goats. Some of our research works in progress are sleeping behavior in Nigerian indigenous chickens and the maternal behavior of different ecotypes of Nigerian indigenous chicken. Dr. Seun Iyasere has won several travel grants and research grants, such as the TED Fund Research Grant in 2018, UFO Travel Grant in 2019, Developing Congress Attendance Fellowship Award winner in 2019 and 2021, and the UFO Animal Welfare Scholarship in 2020 and 2021 was awarded to her master's students, Behavioural and Victor June, respectively, to support her project.
Thank you very much. Our moderator, thank you for the wonderful introduction. And good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for this presentation. I'm Oluwaseun Serah. I'll be speaking on behavioral comparison of two chicken breeds in different contexts. Naturally, we have the native chicken, the hen-chick interaction, where the mother hen provides warmth to her chicks and also communicates to her chicks using a variety of vocalization sounds, ranging from the roosting, the maternal clock, the feed, and alarm clock. These calls or the presence of the mother hen help in the development of the feeding behavior and food preference of her chicks. And it has also been reported that chicks have reduced level of care. However, in the commercial setting, like the first picture that we have here at the hatchery, where the chicks are hatched at day hold, they have no role model of the mother whom to imitate or to follow. And we have pictures showing a researcher setup where you have the birds, they have to learn by themselves without a mother hen. In this kind of situation, the chicks never come in contact with their mother. They are being brooded naturally, artificially, by the provision of artificial heat source. The chicks are moved from the hatchery to an unfamiliar rearing environment, and most times this chicks make a lot of distress. Based on the importance of maternal care, several studies have how we can stimulate maternal care to improve the welfare of chicks, even under commercial setting. The first attempt was the development of what is called the dark brooders to provide warmth and darkness. This has been reported to synchronize the chick behavior and also reduce feather pecking in birds. The picture here shows the first one shows a mother hen covering the chicks and providing warmth and some form of darkness. While the second picture beside this is what the dark brooder looks like. It's a means of stimulating the dark brooder. So, the hen vocalization is another means by which we could stimulate maternal care in a commercial setting. The use of feed call have shown to increase the attraction of the birds closer to the feeder, and this has in turn improved the body weight and also the feed conversion ratio of the birds. The alarm call is of a higher volume and frequency compared to the feed call, and it increases arousal of the birds, and it increases arousal and readiness for danger. On the other hand, the feed call is a high-pitch rapid vocalization, and it is accompanied by pecking behavior so as to enhance the learning of the chicks. This feed call increases the arousal of the chick to feed. It's the animal emotional state of a geological state can be assessed from its vocalization. That means when an animal gives an alarm call, it shows that there is a danger around, which is an indication of a negative, being in a negative state. While when the animal gives a feed call, it shows it's in a positive state because it is happy, and it indicates the presence of something that is positive. Emotion is a linear combination of two independent neurophysiological dimensions, according to Mendel et al. 2010. From this figure, we can see the two dimensions. The first one talks about the level of arousal. It could be high arousal or low arousal. While the second dimension, it talks about the valence. Is the situation negative, or does it have a positive influence on the emotion of the animal? From the comparison between the alarm call and the feed call, we could see that the alarm call is more of negative valence compared to the feed call, which is more of a positive valence. Also, the feed call has been reported to have a calming effect on chicks and also to increase memory due to the release of noradrenaline. So alarm call can trigger some physiological response, such as the activation of the autonomic nervous system, increase in heart rate and blood pressure. This shows that the animal needs, at this point in time, is in facing danger and needs to escape from danger. There is a link between self-reported emotional states and stress-induced hypothermia in humans. The primary response to emotional stress can be measured through stress-induced hypothermia, which results in changes in body temperature. So today, I'll be talking on two experiments that we conducted on our research station. The first one is on the behavioral responses of two breeds of domestic chicks to feed an alarm call playback. This experiment has been published, was published last year. So the experimental animal and procedure. In this study, we compared the Nigerian indigenous chick and the commercial broiler chick. We used 32 chicks of each breed, and they were 2 days old at the beginning of the experiment. The 32 chicks per breed were divided into 4 replicates, that is 8 birds per replicate. The first day of the experiment, the chicks were taken based on replicates to the test arena, which is made of a plywood cage. This will be shown to us later. And the birds were allowed to get to acclimatize to the test arena for a period of 30 minutes per replicate. On day 2 and day 4, chicks were subjected to 1 minute of feed call, and this was played at every 10 minutes interval for a period of 40 minutes. And on the 3rd and the 5th day of the experiment, the birds were subjected to alarm call playback. It was played at 1 minute. It lasted for 1 minute, and it was repeated at every 10 minutes for a 40 minutes period. The experimental setup for the feed call is a typical example of what the test arena looked like. We have the Nigerian indigenous chicken in one half of the test arena, and the broiler chicks in the second half of the arena. We have the playback was played with the use of an MP3 player, And the behavior of the birds were recorded using digital cameras, which are positioned on top of the test arena. While for the alarm call playback setup, we had plastic pipes in addition to the setup of the test arena. And this was provided so that the chicks would have a place to hide in case whenever they hear the alarm call playback. Our results showed that we looked at the behavior of the chicks prior to the call, and this gave us an indication of the different behavioral responses of the chicks prior to any feed call. And we observed that the percentage of birds pecking and feeding, that is figure 1A and 4B, was similar in the two breeds. However, it was observed that the foraging behavior was higher in the Nigerian indigenous chicks, which is one of their natural behavior, as foraging is related to scratching the litter and picking of feeds from it. The second, this shows indigenous chicks displayed greater level of foraging behavior. Figure 2 shows the immediate response. We wanted to see at the point where the playback sound was made, what was the immediate reaction? Could we get any difference in the behavior between these two breeds? And we saw a significant change in terms of the crouching behavior. Here, the percentage of the commercial broiler chicks that crouch, and also the duration of crouching of the commercial broilers, was longer compared to that of the Nigerian indigenous chicks. This could as well give an indication of the level of fear experienced by these two breeds when at the time when the alarm call playback was made. Also, we looked at the immediate behavioral changes of these two breeds under the feed call playback setting in terms of the percentage of birds feeding, pecking, and foraging. Interestingly, in this, during the feed call playback session, there was no significant difference between breeds for the three feed-related behaviors that were monitored. The setup of this experiment, this first experiment, gave room for the birds to have a recovery period. While talking in the materials and method, we had the playback for just 1 minute, and this was repeated at every 10 minutes. That means we have a 9 minutes period in between before the next playback sound was made. And this gave room for opportunity for the birds to recover from this previous sound. At this point, what was the behavior of the birds during the recovery period after the playback sound of the feed call and the alarm call? Figure 4 shows the response, the behavioral responses that we got. And we could see that there was a significantly higher number of commercial broilers that were pecking during the recovery period, while the Nigerian indigenous chicken resumed their foraging activity, which is typical of their nature. So the pecking behavior was greater in the commercial broiler chicks than the Nigerian indigenous chicks, while foraging behavior was greater in Nigerian indigenous chicks than the commercial broiler chicks. So what did we observe during the recovery time after the alarm call in the first experiment? We observed that the Nigerian indigenous chicks displayed more of clustering behavior compared to the commercial broilers during the recovery time. And while the commercial broilers did more of crouching compared to the Nigerian indigenous chicks. This shows that these two breeds of chicks actually displayed different types of anti-predatory behavior. For the commercial broiler, it was more of crouching, while that of for the Nigerian indigenous chicken, it was more of clustering. So in conclusion, for the first experiment, we noticed that the feed call playback could be used to motivate feed-related activities in both breeds, the commercial broiler chicks and the Nigerian indigenous chicks. Also, these commercial broiler chicks were more fearful compared to the Nigerian indigenous chicks. And finally, the two breeds exhibited different anti-predatory behaviors. It was clustering was observed in the Nigerian indigenous chicks, while crouching was more in the commercial broiler chicks. But in this study, in our first experiment, we only looked at the behavior of these birds. We didn't consider the degree of arousal in terms of physiological changes, and that is why we proceeded to conduct the second experiment. The title of the second experiment is a comparative study on stress-induced hyperthermia, level of fear, and behavior of two genetically selected breeds of domestic chicks to playback call. In this experiment, we made use of 36 chicks each of the Issa Brown pullet chicks, and we made use of the Funab Alpha broiler chicks. The Funab Alpha broiler chicks is an improved indigenous breed we can also refer to it as a slow-growing broiler line. This experiment is close to that of the first experiment, but there are some significant differences. In terms of the duration, the playback in this second experiment was more of a continuous playback sound continuously for 1 hour, while the first experiment, it was at different intervals. This second experiment lasted for 2 weeks. The first day, we played the alarm call playback, and the second day, we played the feed call playback, and the third day, there was no call playback to serve as a control. And this was repeated for the second week, so as to have get an average for the values together. The test arena used here is in the first experiment. The audio playback sound too was the same as the one used in the first experiment, except for the fact that it lasted continuously for 1 hour. The behavioral observation was monitored with the use of digital camera, and this was monitored continuously for 1 hour. In this study, we took the wing temperature and eye temperature of the birds before the playback sound was before the playback sound commenced, and immediately after 1 hour at the end of the playback sound, because we wanted to see if we would see any physiological changes in terms of changing eye temperature and wing temperature based on a continuous playback of different calls, which we have known that could induce different emotional states in the animal. And also in this study, we looked at the level of fear using the tonic immobility test. And this was conducted just immediately at the end of 1 hour of each playback sound. Our results from the second experiment showed that there was a significant breed effect on the change in wing temperature after the alarm call playback sound. From the figure, we see the highlighted bars. The change in wing temperature was greater in the broilers compared to the pullets. And while at the end of the playback of the feed call, we saw a significant increase in the wing temperature of the pullets now compared to the broilers. From this, we could see that the physiological responses to the different playback sound have different effects on the two breeds. While the broilers had an increase in the wing temperature after the alarm call playback, the pullets showed a higher change to the feed call playback sound. At the time when there was no sound that was played, that's the control period, there was no significant difference in the change in wing temperature. The eye temperature, there was no significant change under the three playbacks. So after 1 hour of being subjected to the 3 different playback sounds, it was only during the time when the alarm call playback sound was made that we saw a significant difference in the number of attempts to induce tonic immobility in these 2 breeds of chicks. The number of attempts to increase tonic immobility was greater in the commercial broilers compared to the indigenous pullets. So we could deduce from this that although we know that these 2 breeds might have different natural behavior, but when placed under this same set of alarm call playback sound, the FUNAP alpha broilers had higher number of attempts to induce tonic immobility. The implication of this is that since it took a lower number of attempts to induce tonic immobility in the Isa brown pullets, it shows that the pullets were more fearful after exposure to 1 hour of the alarm call playback. We found no significant difference in these 2 breeds after the feed call and no call playback sound. In terms of the duration of tonic immobility, there was a tendency for the duration of tonic immobility to be longer in the Isa brown pullet chicks compared to the FUNAP alpha broilers. We looked at, we tried to group all the behavior of the birds which were related to oral feeding. That is the sum of foraging, feeding, and pecking, and we call this oral related behavior. And we found no significant difference based on breed under each playback sound. And the same thing for the fear-related behavior, there was no significant difference. So in conclusion, we observed that the Isa brown pullet chicks showed greater arousal in terms of higher change in wing temperature when exposed to the feed call playback. While the broilers, the FUNAP alpha broilers, showed greater arousal in terms of higher wing temperature after exposure to alarm call playback sound. The condition under which these two chick breeds showed higher level of fearfulness was context dependent. For the pullets, they were more fearful during the no call and feed call playback, while the broilers were more fearful after the alarm call playback. During each of the 3 playback calls, the feed-related behavior in the pullet and the broiler chicks were similar. With this result, and for us to come to a good conclusion about the use of maternal calls, especially feed call, and to see the response of chicks to alarm call, because these 2 calls, the feed call and the alarm call, they are more related to the survival of the animals, especially in the natural environment. Our future work, therefore, is to determine the effect of age of the chicks on their response to playback call. Will a 1-week-old chick respond differently or similarly to a 2-week-old or 3-week-old chicks? And also we intend to compare the intermittent versus continuous playback on the behavior and stress-induced hyperthermia of chicks. These are some of the references, and thank you for listening.
Great. That was a wonderful presentation on our own indigenous chicken. I think this is the second time we are having presentation on the indigenous chicken and the FUNAP alphabet. So that's a wonderful one. Congratulations, ma. I will not go ahead and take the questions that we have here. I will ask my own questions later. So, question from Samuel Duroshar. He asks that when there is both feed and alarm calls, what does the bird do? Maybe I should just take his questions together. And also, what could have made CBC. I'm sorry, I can't really.
Commercial.
Commercial
broiler
chicks to be more fearful in the first experiment. Let's take those two questions first.
Let me start from the second question. What could have made the commercial broiler chicks more fearful? Based on the genetic selection for increased body weight gain of these birds, it has actually impaired the welfare of the birds and also their behavior, because the broilers tend to be more docile and calm. So the level of fearfulness of these birds cannot be compared to that of the Nigerian indigenous chicks, because they have the tendency, this inherited gene, which has not been selected against compared to the commercial broiler chicks. I can't get the first question.
The first question you asked that when there is both feed and alarm calls, what does the bird do?
During the feed call is meant to attract, is more of an attraction call, to call the animal to where there is food, or it indicates the presence of food, while alarm call indicates the presence of danger. So danger, it could be in form of predator, and we could have them in different shades, maybe aerial predator or ground predator. And these two calls, the feed call and the alarm call, have been reported to be functionally referential, in the sense that the coded message in the calls send information to the receiver, which tells the receiver about different things based on the situation on ground. At times, the feed call will, during the feed call, the bird might pass information through the call to her chicks, indicating the presence of pleasant food, maybe more nutritious food, and also the quantity of feed that is available. Also, the type of the alarm call also varies depending on the type of predator that is around, either a ground predator, aerial predator, or the speed at which the predator is approaching. All these messages can be coded in the calls that are being sent to the animal.
Okay, another question also coming from Dr. Oluwaseun. Fast-growing and slow-growing chickens, which one is your choice, bearing in mind the cost of production? And what informed the choice of time in minutes that you use for playback calls in the second experiment?
Which is my choice, the fast or slow growing? Based on the aspect of animal welfare, the slow growing is better, because the welfare of the animals are not compromised. They are free, they are not weighed down. They are able to move around. But farmers at times may say they'll prefer the fast growing breed because of the short period of the grow out period and to reach market weight. For the farmer, it may be a good option, but looking at it from the perspective of the animal, the slow growing breed is of better welfare. And the second, you said,
What informed the choice of time in minutes used for the playback calls in the second experiment?
Yes. What informed the use of a continuous playback sound for 1 hour in the second experiment was based on the result of the from the second experiment was based on the result from the first experiment. We discovered that when the calls were played at different intervals, the birds had the opportunity to recover from the sound before the next one was played. So we noticed that if to trigger or to see the actual emotional state caused by this feed call, we need to subject them under a situation where the call will last for a longer period, where they have no opportunity to recover. So we would see the real picture of what the call is about. Thank you.
Fantastic. So he asked again that, did you check the autogeny? did you check the autogeny of the behaviors examined? And when there is both feed and alarm calls at the same time, what does the bird do?
We didn't check the ontogeny. That means the change in the behavior over time as they grow, We didn't check that. It was just for a short period of time. So that's a good area to look into. Second, I can get the second question.
The second question, he asks that when there is both feed and alarm calls at the same time, what does the bird do?
Wow, that was going to lead to confusion. But we never did the feed and alarm call on the same day. They were done on different days.
So, question from Oluwaseun Serah Iyasere: did you observe any difference in the behavior and physiology of chickens exposed to maternal care and those? Okay. She asked, did you observe any difference in the behavior and physiology of chickens exposed to maternal care and those that were not? Is there any difference in the behavior and physiology of the chickens that have access to maternal care compared to those that does not have access?
That will be based on literature. There is a consistent report from literature that shows that brooded chicks, that means chicks that are brooded by their mother hens, were less fearful, compared to those that were not brooded by a mother hen. But that aspect is not part of what we looked at in our study. We only looked at non-brooded of different breeds.
Okay, question from Adekunle Shoronke. He asks that with the alarm and feed playback, will the difference in recovery rate affect their feed intake, vis-a-vis weight gain, and considering the rate of their fear? Okay, let me come again. With the alarm and feed playback, will the difference in the recovery rate affect feed intake, vis-a-vis weight gain, and considering the rate of their fear in commercial broilers and indigenous chicken? Should I break the question?
That will it affect their recovery in terms of feed intake
and weight gain?
Though I want to believe that the recovery period after the alarm may be a bit longer compared to when the feed call was played, but we didn't compare the duration or the latency to recover to start their normal behavior after the playback of these two calls. The level of fear have implication on the productivity of an animal, because when an animal is fearful, there is a tendency that the stress level is going to be on the high side, and instead of the animal gaining weight, it tends to spend more of this energy in looking for means to cope with this stress condition.
All right. Seun Eson asks that, was there any trait of in any physiological trait of the bird as a result of their responses to the alarm clock? If there are, what trait was it?
Any physiological trait? We looked at the changes in the wing and eye temperature to give us an immediate effect of how the animal interprets the playback call. We took the both body temperature before the call and immediately after 1 hour. So the difference between these two time periods is an indicator of the response of the animal to the sounds. And we discovered that it was only the wing temperature that gave a significant response compared to the eye temperature.
Okay, I have another question here. They ask that what is the welfare implication of the increase in level of fare to farmers?
The welfare implication of fear to farmers. The welfare implication will be to the animal, is not to the farmers, because it is the animal that is experiencing the fear. The farmer can only be affected in terms of the production or the body weight of the animal. And once there is a high level of fear, the animal, the welfare of the animal is compromised. If we look at the five freedoms, the animal welfare, based on the FAWC 1992 definition of animal welfare, one of the five freedoms says freedom from fear. That means we need to rear the animals under a situation or environment where they are more comfortable and less fearful. And this will make the feed conversion rate may be high, and the productivity will also be on the high side.
Okay, now to my question. I have just two questions for you. While delivering your first presentation, you mentioned that alarm calls stimulate the adrenal medulla to increase the stress hormone. I want to ask that could there also be a link between the feed call and appetite? Probably, maybe feed call can trigger increase in feed intake or even increase in ghrelin hormone in chicken.
That's a good one. That's a good one. But you know, there are two aspects to feeding behavior. I think we have the appetitive phase and the consummatory phase. We'll notice that at some point, this feed call increased foraging behavior. That is more of the appetitive phase. But the actual feeding is the consummatory phase. The, the report of Woodcock et al. 2004 actually didn't observe that the feed call increased the feed intake, but they noticed that the birds exposed to feed call had increased body weight. The authors were able to explain this result based on the fact that they believe that the feed call had a calming effect, to be relaxed. So the little that the birds eat is being converted into muscle or flesh, or what do you call it.
That's interesting to know. My second question is still relating to the first one. If feed call can really be beneficial to body weight, like you said, how do we simulate it under commercial settings, especially for birds raised in the battery cages?
To simulate it will involve the use of speakers positioned in the poultry house, and the calls will be made. Though we are yet to know the best way of presenting this call. Should it be more of intermittent or more of continuous? That is one of the future research that we need to conduct to know the best approach to use it on a commercial setting.
Okay, I have another question here from Bukola Majekodunmi. I think it's still related to the one I asked. She asks that can the feed call be used to increase performance in commercial broiler?
Based on the result of Woodcock et al., it actually improved the performance within the period when the feed call was made. The work of Woodcock lasted for just 9 days. And within that 9-day period, they observed that significant increase in body weight when the birds were in the birds that were subjected to the feed call. But after the 9 days, when the call was stopped, they discovered that both groups, the feed group and the control group, grew at the same rate. So definitely it can improve the performance.
I think I've taken all the questions here. That's a very beautiful presentation. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I thank you for taking your time to respond to all the questions asked. So, we'll soon be rounding up. Before then, please, I want everybody to on their videos so that we can take some shots of today's series. And also, don't forget to check us on Twitter handle at AWGN14, and also on our Facebook page at Animal Welfare Group Nigeria, and on LinkedIn at Animal Welfare Group Nigeria. Thank you so much for the beautiful presentation. I would like to ask, before we round up, that if there is comments from the participants based on today's or based on the past seminars that we've had. Comments from participants based on today's presentation and past ones that we've had that could help to move the animal welfare group and this seminar forward. If you have any questions,
Hello.
please unmute yourself.
Hello.
And let's have your comments.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, please, you can talk. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr.
comment.
Iyasere. I just have a comment. I saw that you started the experiment on day 2, and the first feedback call was on that same day. Don't you think the stress of artery transportation will also affect their recovery or their response to the feedback calls and the alarm calls you make? I would rather say it would be better if you have started the experiment maybe on day 4 or day 5, whereby the stress of transport and nursery stress at least will have subsided. That's my own suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. But the chicks were hatched on the farm, very close to the research site, within FUNAB. So we didn't get the beds from outside. It was not a long distance, transportation distance. And number 2, we got them when they were day old, the first day. So, and we started the second day. Because in the natural setting, immediately the hen, the chicks hatch, immediately the mother hen, starts teaching them and communicating with them. In fact, communication in chickens between the mother hen and the embryo starts about day 17 during incubation. So they have established that contact, and the chicks would learn the sound of the mother. So, but that's a good suggestion. But the chicks were hatched very close to the research site. It was not a long distance.
Any other comments from the participants, please? Okay. In the absence of any other comments, please, can we on our videos? Hello, we can hear you.
Sorry, just one thing. Concerning your future research, it will be very interesting. But with my experience with commercial broiler and commercial layers, it seems the response differs. Maybe it's because of weight, their individual weights. I can't say, but it will be interesting if the results, if you can go in. I saw that you make a recommendation that you're going to go into the age, considering the age of the animals. It will be interesting. I would love to see the results after you've done it. It's a very good work. We hope to see the result when it comes in. Thank you.
The 2 experiments are reported. The 2 breeds were actually of the same age. So age is not a factor.
The one I'm saying that you make a recommendation that when they are older, maybe you will try and look at their recovery rate, maybe when they are older. I saw that when you finish your after the conclusion.
The recommendation I gave was to see the effect of age.
Okay.
Based on it, will the 1 week old respond better than the
Then
2 weeks or the 3 weeks old? We know
that's
that
what I'm
normally
saying.
we brood for like 3-4 weeks. So
Yes.
if we want to adopt these playback calls, we need to know the appropriate time, the timing, the real timing when it will be more effective on the chicks. So that's
Yes.
why I would say we may need to check using chicks of different age groups and see their responses.
Thank you. I would love to see that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments, please? We would love to have as many comments as you can get. Okay. I think we don't have any other person talking. So in the absence of any, please on. Okay, let's have your video on. Let's take a picture. I can see some people still have their videos off. If you know you can we can really view you. Please let's have your video on. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you so much.